In December of 1900, 3 lighthouse keepers stationed on a lonely rock in the North Atlantic vanished without a trace. No bodies were ever found, no witnesses, no answers. What happened on that cold, windswept island still echoes through history, a story of isolation, duty, and mystery that has haunted the seas for over a century. Far off the coast of Scotland, about 20 miles west of the Outer Hebrides, lie 7 small islands. They are called the Flannan Isles, remote, craggy outcrops that rise sharply from the sea. Winds howl endlessly across their cliffs, and waves crash against them with the full force of the Atlantic. The largest of these is Eilean Mor, the Great Isle, a desolate place where almost no one dared stay the night. Fishermen in nearby villages whispered of curses, of spirits that roamed its grassy slopes after dark. Even in daylight, Eilean Mor felt like the edge of the world. In 1899, after years of hardship, a lighthouse was built on that lonely rock, a shining tower to guide ships safely through the storms. It took 4 years to complete, through wind and rain, and when it finally lit its lamp in December 1899, it was a triumph. But 1 year later, it would become a monument to one of the most enduring mysteries in maritime history. 3 men were stationed there in December 1900. Their names were James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur. Ducat, aged 43, was the principal keeper, steady and dependable. Marshall, 28, was the young assistant, disciplined and sharp. And MacArthur, around 40, was an occasional keeper, a rugged man with a reputation for toughness. They had been placed there to keep the great light burning through the harsh winter months. Their work was repetitive but critical, tending the flame, recording weather, maintaining machinery. It was a lonely life. No radio, no telegraph, no contact with the world, only a signal flag that could sometimes be seen from the mainland on clear days. For weeks at a time, they were completely cut off, surrounded by the sea and the endless roar of wind. On December 7, 1900, Superintendent Robert Muirhead made his routine visit. He inspected the light, spoke with the keepers, and found everything in perfect order. As he departed, the men waved from the cliffs. MacArthur, staying behind to tend the light, raised his hand from the tower. Muirhead later wrote, "I have the melancholy recollection that I was the last person to shake hands with them and bid them adieu." 19 days later, when the relief ship finally reached the island, all 3 men were gone. The first sign of trouble came on December 15th. A passing steamer, the Octor, noted that the lighthouse on Eilean Mor was dark, a dangerous and unheard-of situation. 3 days later, the ship reached its destination and reported it. But storms swept across the coast, preventing any immediate investigation. The relief ship Hesperus was scheduled to sail on December 20th, carrying supplies and a relief keeper named Joseph Moore. But the weather delayed them until December 26th, Boxing Day. As the Hesperus approached the island through thick mist, Captain Harvey and his crew noticed something strange. The flag wasn't flying. No supply boxes had been set out to be restocked. No movement could be seen near the lighthouse. 3 blasts of the foghorn were sounded. There was no response. A signal rocket was fired. Still nothing. Standing on the deck, watching the island emerge from the fog, Joseph Moore felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. He knew the men well. Ducat,
Marshall and MacArthur were his friends. He volunteered to go ashore. Mor and a sailor named McCormick climbed into a small boat and made their way to the east landing. As they climbed the steps to the top, Mor called out to the keepers, but only the wind answered. When he reached the lighthouse, he found the entrance gate closed. Inside, silence. The lamps were clean and refilled, the beds unmade, as if the men had just risen. The dishes were washed, and cold ashes lay in the fireplace. One chair was knocked over, and all the clocks had stopped. He searched every room, but there was no sign of life. No struggle, no damage, no clue. Just emptiness. He returned to the ship, pale and trembling, and told Captain Harvey what he'd found. A small search party went back with him to look for signs along the cliffs. At the east landing, everything looked normal, but at the west landing, the scene was different. A box, once secured 110 feet above sea level, had been smashed open. Its contents, ropes, tools, and equipment were scattered everywhere. Iron railings were bent and twisted. A massive stone, weighing over a ton, had been dislodged and hurled several meters inland. Patches of turf atop the cliff had been ripped away as if torn by the wind itself. 2 sets of oilskins, the heavy coats worn for storm duty, were missing, but one remained hanging by the door. Whoever had gone out last had done so without his. The last entry in the logbook was dated December 15th at 9 a.m. After that, nothing. The captain sent a telegram to the Northern Lighthouse Board. Dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The 3 keepers have disappeared. Poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure something. It was the simplest explanation, but many refused to believe it. As word spread, rumors took shape. Some claimed that a half-eaten meal was found on the table, as if the men had vanished mid-bite. Others said a chair was overturned, or that strange marks were found carved into the rocks. But these were later proved false, embellishments added over the years to make the tale more haunting. Still, the question remained: what really happened? One theory suggested the men were swept away by a freak wave. Perhaps Marshall and Ducat had gone to the west landing to secure a loose box or mooring line. When they didn't return, MacArthur, noticing their delay, rushed out without his coat to help. A massive wave could have struck without warning, dragging all 3 men into the sea. It's plausible, but there are problems. Ducat was an experienced keeper. He wouldn't have risked his men's lives in stormy weather to retrieve equipment. The timing, too, seems off. Why would they attempt such a task late in the day with failing light and rising winds? Another theory suggests wind, not water, claimed them. The lighthouse was built on a sloped ground, and the west wall created a wind tunnel effect. In gale-horse conditions, the pressure could become so strong that a man could be lifted from his feet and thrown over the cliff. Perhaps the men stepped outside to investigate the noise of banging shutters, turned the corner near the winch house, and were struck by a powerful gust that hurled them into the sea. The 3rd man may have followed, unaware of what had happened, only to meet the same fate. Others whispered darker possibilities. Some believed that isolation, that crushing loneliness, drove one of them mad. Donald MacArthur, the occasional keeper, was known for his short temper. He had already spent months away from his family. Perhaps tension built between the men. Perhaps anger flared, and tragedy followed. But there were no signs of struggle inside. Everything was neat, quiet and calm. Over the decades, the mystery of the Flannan Isles has grown. Stories of ghostly lights, phantom voices, and curses have been told in seaside taverns. Yet the most haunting part of the story isn't what might have happened. It's what was left behind. A light that went dark. 3 men who promised to return home for Christmas, but never did. The lighthouse remained manned for 70 more years without incident. In 1971, it was fully automated. Today, it still stands on that lonely island, its light sweeping across the waves just as it did more than a century ago. But the mystery remains. No bodies were ever found. No clues ever surfaced.